Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Colin Igo. I'm the head of school at Long Trail. We're here to celebrate the life of Dave Wilson. And in planning today's event, Reen was clear that this should be a celebration. In fact, her words were a big party. So let's do that. Dave was an amazing man. Today we'll hear stories from people throughout Dave's life and from the 48 years of Long Trail School. 32 of those years when Dave served as headmaster. So welcome to all of you. Whether you've been at Long Trail since day one, joining on Zoom, or if this is your first time on campus, we're glad that you're here. And we're here today, all of us, because of Dave Wilson's vision and dedication that created this place. We all stand on his shoulders, and we're here to thank him, to share laughs, and to celebrate his worthy life. My first interaction with Dave was via email in April of 2022, immediately after I had accepted this job. And I mean immediately after I had accepted this job. I received an email from Dave, and after expressing congratulations, he wrote, "Reen and I founded a family personalized school, but one with high expectations for both academics and character. We always had fun, too." And as Dave looks down on us today, and on this school that he and Reen built, I know he wants us to have fun too. And before I hand things over to Wayne, I want to share with all of you about the last time that Dave was on campus. It was this past February, and Dave and I were meeting to talk about some future capital projects that we're planning at school before he and Reen headed south to Florida. Being February, a group of senior students were delivering singing valentines. For a few bucks, you could surprise your Valentine with a singing telegram. Of course, I couldn't resist surprising Dave. I was actually fortunate enough to capture a little bit of it on video. So, Jeremy, if you don't mind.
Friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. Ooh, ooh, yeah.
Here's $5.
I love everything about that clip. I love that school is buzzing, students are passing between classes. Most of all, I love the huge smile on Dave's face at the end. And it's a perfect song that the students chose. Count on Me. Because we could all count on Dave. There was never a time that I called or emailed Dave and he did not respond. He was always there for students, colleagues, or anything LTS. We could count on Dave. As an aside, I love that Dave tried to pay the students twice for their performance. And Reen, as she said the first time she saw it, $5, he's so cheap. And finally, after this lovely moment, Dave and I got down to the business of sharing some capital projects that we were considering here at school. And in the course of our conversation, he grew anxious. He was lamenting inflation and costs, becoming visibly disgruntled and wondering if we could accomplish the things that we set out to do. And finally, I got frustrated and I stopped the conversation. I said, "Dave, look around. Before you, this was a cornfield. There's 246 students that fill the hallways, the classrooms, the theater, the sports fields, and you built it. Did you ever think you couldn't do that?" And he stopped for a second, and he said, "No, I knew we could do it." And his big smile returned. And that's my enduring memory of Dave Wilson. He was a visionary. but he didn't consider himself to be. He was tireless and dedicated to his last breath. He believed in the power and the hope of young people, and he had a big smile on his face. So thank you, Dave. Thanks for having belief, vision, and determination to create this wonderful community. We're forever indebted to you. So let's celebrate Dave and celebrate your life, Dave. I cannot imagine a life better lived. Thank you. And I'll hand things over to Wayne Bell, who's a good family friend.
I can hear him laughing. St. Francis prayed, "May I be an instrument of peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. Grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life." Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Reverend Wayne Edwin Bell, a friend of Dave and Reenie's for more than 40 years. I met Dave in 1981 at a Rotary meeting when Walt Freed invited me to dinner at the Tract 4. Some of you will remember that. I was the new operator of Ye Olde Tavern, and when I met Dave that evening, it began a lifetime friendship. Today, I'm both saddened and honored to join you to celebrate Dave's life, a life I will miss, but a life well and fully lived with an incredible legacy, evident by all of you here and what is all around us, this Long Trail School. Despite his Baptist and Presbyterian family traditions, Dave was not a particularly religious man. But as his niece Lori said, his faith transcended organized religion. As you know, he was an extraordinarily compassionate, generous, and empathetic man who lived Christian values. He found his spiritual fulfillment in you, his people. Today we'll talk a lot about family. It's important to remember that in the context of Dave's life, that doesn't just refer to Dave and Reen's biological families, but also to their friends, their staff, their colleagues, their students. All of you, you were considered their family. You are considered their family. Regardless of our personal beliefs or where we are on our own spiritual journeys, we are all united as family by common and powerful threads of life. And it's important to join together, as we do today, to acknowledge, share, respect, and celebrate life and its passages, especially this final one. We will do this for Dave, for Reen, for ourselves, and for all that he loved, with condolences, reflections, remembrances, and stories. Dave had a magnetic personality and was very funny, as you know. So buckle up. He has set the bar high for us. He wants us to celebrate. We will laugh. We may cry as we remember and miss him. We'll also remember our roots. We'll hear about his family, his hopes for the younger generations, and his love for all of you. We'll remember those ties of love and God's presence enfolding and embracing us all. And so we pray that our spiritual lives are worthy and our hearts always rest in love so deep that they help us bridge the difficulties of life and appreciate and understand its meaning. It is important at times such as this to be reassured of loving support of family in our lives. The wisdom of Ecclesiastes, the teacher from the Old Testament, reminds us that to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to reap. He concludes a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance. We will certainly weep, and we will definitely laugh, and we do mourn. Dave would probably want us to dance, but that would be more than $5. So, as we remember him, we acknowledge and honor and give great thanks for a multitude of sacrifices, whether remembered or forgotten, all the things he shared with us. This is our time to mourn, but know that life will continue, and there will be a time to dance. Dave's death becomes part of this ancient observation and advice. When someone dies, one of the emotions we feel is fear. We may also feel anger. We ask why, and there's no satisfactory answer. Loving each other is easy when times are good and everything is right. But the challenge of living is being able to love when we feel as if our world is crumbling beneath our feet. The challenge of living is facing death and the fact that we can never touch the one we love again. Our challenge of living with Dave's death is in respecting and honoring his life, by finding a way to help him move to a place within us where we can continue to know his love, where we can talk to him when we need to, where the love he created with all of you will continue and grow, differently now, but no less beautifully. You may experience this change as a loss of his love, but now you must find the love and compassion he gave to you and nurture and protect each other with it. As you return the love he gave to you, to each other, the people he loved, you keep him alive within you. This gathering is part of a celebration of Dave's life that began at his birth and will continue as long as he is remembered. It is the outward token of love and loss, inward grieving, sadness, joy, and comfort as we recall the life we shared with him. In our gathering and reflection, we create and decorate with our memories a special place to keep him forever in our hearts. So in joining together, we honor him and keep his memory and spirit alive. We'll tell his stories, and of course, we hope the memories of Dave will bring you comfort and joy, make you smile, perhaps guffaw. I usually do that. I'm reminded of the wisdom of the Linda Ellis poem that refers to the dash between the dates of our births and deaths in our obituary, reminding us that what matters most in our life is represented by that dash between those years. To help us remember Dave's dash, we review his obituary, a brief outline of a full life, beautifully written by his niece Lori. David Dean Wilson, 1942-2024. Dave passed away peacefully at his winter home in Venice, Florida on Monday, June 10th. He's survived by his beloved wife, Irene Schroff Wilson, nieces Shelley Whittier, Lori McMaster, and his nephew Michael Wilson. Grandnieces Rachel Whittier, Caitlin McMaster, Maya Wilson, and grandnephews Morgan and Ethan McMaster. Dave was preceded in death by his parents, Helen Archibald Wilson and Albert S. Wilson, and his brother, James A. Wilson. He was born and raised in Pittsburgh. He attended Valley Forge Military Academy, got his BA from Indiana University of Pennsylvania, and his master's in education from Antioch of New England. Dave and Reen co-founded this school, which is an international baccalaureate independent coeducational day school serving students grades 6 through 12. They started Long Trail School with 4 teachers and 14 students. Today the students number, as Colin mentioned, 246, with a faculty and administrative staff of 55. And they've served as headmaster for the 32 years. Dave and Reen retired in 2007, having devoted their lives to the school 7 days a week, 52 days a year. Their impact on their students, alumni, and community is immeasurable. They did not have children of their own, but Long Trail School and generations of his students were their children nonetheless. The school will celebrate its 50th anniversary next year. Dave also served the community on the Dorset Select Board from 1987 to 95 and the Zoning Board from 2000 to 2024. Dave is an utterly joyful, mischievous, well-read extrovert, and a political junkie. And when he walked into a room, he brought light and laughter with him, and many people grabbed their wallets. I don't know what made him put that in there. He had an amazing charisma. He loved nothing better than to be the center of attention. He was a born leader. Dave was a devout liberal and always the life of the party. He emanated good humor and would often laugh until he cried. He was totally authentic and transparent. His favorite musicians were Celine Dion, the Moody Blues, the Bee Gees, and Fleetwood Mac. The value of education was a central theme across generations of his family. His late mother, Helen, was an elementary school teacher, and his father, Albert, a vocational teacher. His brother, James, was a professor at the University of Pittsburgh Graduate School for 30 years. Dave was absolutely devoted to Reen. They were truly a team and adored and respected each other enormously. When he had health issues in the last years of his life, Reen's loving care extended his life considerably. Dave's life of selfless teaching and mentoring of thousands of students and his younger family members is a testament to his life-affirming, service-filled existence. So now we're going to begin the part of the program where we share remembrances. I mentioned an obituary is an outline of a life. Today we have a number of people slated to share remembrances and to begin coloring the space between those lines. There will certainly not be enough time to hear even a fraction of the people who have stories about the times that Dave was part of their lives, but I want to remind you that this is a celebration that continues as long as his stories are remembered and shared. So when you leave here, continue to share this place he lives in your heart with stories, and by doing this, you honor this school, your family, and the legacy he and Reen created. I shared a little time here as a substitute teacher way back in the beginning of the original building here, but I have many stories which I guess could be categorized as extracurricular. Somebody knows me. I won't take this time as we have a full program, but at the reception afterwards, feel free to ask me, sighs of relief, about crashing Dave and Reen's wedding dinner at the Equinox. I think Walt was in there. Or how Dave helped steal the lion from the Lions Club and feature it in the Loyalty Day Parade. Or his Camaro with a Hurst shifter cruising down Main Street in Manchester to the Quality at night for a late night debriefing. Or the night he had to walk home from downtown Manchester after he put his keys in the hand Chevrolet slot, and he was walking home hoping to run into Reenie on the way, but he managed to get all the way from Manchester to Dorset before that happened. For those of you that don't know, that's a long. Or a legendary night when Courtney Callow's dad, Peter Mutz, cooked dinner on the wood stove in Robert Todd Lincoln's kitchen for Oscar and Seal Johnson with Dave, Reenie, and Rotary friends in the Hildene dining room. But as I mentioned, these were but a few extracurricular activities with details to follow that I will continue to regale my friends and family with for years to come whenever I think of Dave Wilson. Dave wore many hats. And as you will hear, he was many wonderful things to many people. But to me, I was proud to call him my friend. May I introduce Dave's niece, Lori McMaster.
Good afternoon. My name is Lori McMaster, and as Wayne said, I am very proud to be Dave Wilson's niece. I feel very privileged today to be speaking with you on behalf of the Wilson family because we are a family of talkers. And no one spoke more enthusiastically in conversation than my Uncle David. Dave Wilson was born in Wilkinsburg, a poor working class borough of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in 1942 to Albert and Helen Wilson. Dave had one sibling, my father, James Wilson, and my father was 14 years old when Uncle David was born. It's probably a good thing that there was a 14-year difference between my father and Uncle David, because I think any family would need 14 years to prepare for the arrival of Dave Wilson. Uncle David brought unfiltered joy and silliness to our lives, while always challenging us to be the best versions of ourselves. While he was little, Uncle David's favorite way to wake up my father was to jump up and down on his bed near his head. Uncle David's favorite story, and one I think he told our family at least 100 times, was when he would routinely hang up the phone when my father was talking with a girlfriend on the phone. So my dad would call a girlfriend of the time using the family's one black rotary dial phone, which was positioned in the kitchen. And my father would take that phone, extend the line as far as he could towards the cellar door, and then leave the base of the phone outside of the cellar door for privacy, open the cellar door, step down 2 steps with the receiver, and then close the cellar door. But remember, the base of the phone was on the other side of the door in the kitchen. So after my father had been talking with a girlfriend for a few minutes, Uncle David would come to the outside of that door and say, "Jim, it's time to say goodnight." Click! And then hang the phone up. At which point my father would come chasing out of the cellar, running after Uncle David all over the house. Could never catch him. And then would go back into the kitchen, redial his girlfriend's number, put the base down, open the cellar door, walk 2 steps down, and then start talking to his girlfriend. And then, of course, in a few minutes, Uncle David would do it all over again. When Uncle David told that story, it didn't matter if it was the 100th or 150th time. He would be laughing so hard that the thing that made him laugh hardest was the click. And then he'd be just dying of laughter. And even though we heard the story 100 times before, we'd all be laughing all over the place. Except for my father, when it was alive, he'd be more like, But even as a child, I knew when Uncle David would come to visit, and he walked in our kitchen door, I knew the party was about to start, and that there was going to be a lot of fun and a lot of laughter. Uncle David adored his family, and he was loud about it. In 1986, I graduated from law school, and I remember standing in line with my classmates. We were just about to process into the auditorium to begin the commencement ceremony. And as I'm starting to move, I hear suddenly a loud voice, "Lori!" And I turn, and it's Uncle David, who's running towards me and gives me a big hug, all while simultaneously causing 220 of my law school classmates to delay their commencement. So in 2013, Uncle David and Aunt Renee traveled to London and Paris with my husband Dave and I and our children to celebrate their graduation from high school. When we were standing at the gates at Buckingham Palace, where there were many people standing, Uncle David announced in a very loud, high-pitched voice, "We're here for tea with the Queen!" And our Our children were mortified. Mortified. And then he kept doing it. Yes, we're here for tea with the Queen. And that's the way it was. Yes. But Long Trail was, is, and will always be a part of our family. When our children were young, my husband and I started to bring them here every summer to Dorset for summer vacations. And they would ride the scooters in the parking lot, they would play in the gymnasium, and they would go into the library and pull the bell that used to be there. And that was a wonderful sound for them. My brother Michael's wedding was here at Long Trail School. And most importantly to our family, Long Trail School and Uncle David brought Reedy into our family, who has added to our lives immeasurably. Uncle David was very proud of his family, and over the years he became a second father to me, to my sister Shelley, and to my brother Michael. Uncle David was completely transparent in his love for his family, and all of us knew that he would do anything for us, at any time, under any circumstances, all while creating the finest coeducational college preparatory school in the state of Vermont. Not bad for a kid from Wilkinsburg. Thank you all. It's now my honor to introduce Chip Chamberlain, former chair and member of Long Trail's Board of Trustees, and Catherine Rockwell McLaughlin, 2001 Long Trail School alum and current member of the Board of Trustees.
Hi, everybody. Well, David did it again. He got me to wear a coat and tie after I swore off. And a little known fact that I learned tonight was that you scratched AC off the budget when you built this place. Last time I was here, I was chair, and that AC was in the budget. Randy, thanks for this opportunity. It's always good to come back. And interestingly enough, the last time I was on a stage at Long Trail was 2007. I want to say a special hello to my favorite people, and that is the faculty and staff of the school. You can clap. I started off the commencement address in 2007, because I always thought that the heartbeat of the school is the faculty and staff, and that continues to this day. Story time. In June of 2007, David and I exited the stage together at Long Trail's graduation ceremony. He was the retiring head of school, and I was retiring as a board member of the Board of Trustees. The students had asked me to give the commencement address. I always suspected that Dave had a finger on the scale on that one, but it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun. And as you know, only one of us really retired, and that was me. I was dropping off a check with Kath early this summer, and found her up in the penthouse. And she quickly pointed out, "Oh, that's Dave's office. Dave's office is right down the hall. There. You see the chairs sticking out in the hall, that's Dave's chair." So he never really retired. I felt like David and I had been joined at the hip for most of my 9 years on the board, over 6 of them as chair. He loved to tell me, "You lasted longer than any of them." During the year, the school year, we would meet almost every week at the Village Fair. Some of you may remember the Village Fair in Manchester. And the reason we met there was because it opened at 6 o'clock. It was the only breakfast place in town that did. And Dave wanted to tolerate meeting with his board chair, but he also wanted to get back in school to meet the kids when they came. But through all those years that we met, I got to see and hear what it was like to be ahead of school. And it's not for the faint of heart, as I'm sure Colin and Molly can tell you. You might say we bonded at another graduation several years earlier. Yes, like that. Snickers. It came to be known as the naked graduation. I still get asked when people, oh, you were at Long Trail? Were you there? Yeah, I was right behind the podium. So here's the rest of the story as far as I'm sure there are fact checkers here, but this is my memory. And if you want to correct me, you can. I was a rookie board chair 6 months into the job. My first experience on stage, I was quite comfortable sitting where you are looking up. And this was the first time I was on stage looking back at the audience. But I thought, hey, I'm going to hand out some diplomas, I'm going to listen to some great speeches. What could be better than that? Little did I know. And as you know, along with a culture of calling all the faculty and staff by their first names at Long Trail, graduates get to give a short speech, play a musical instrument, read a poem, something that will allow them to express themselves in their own unique way in front of an adoring audience. Well, midway through the speeches, one young lady stepped up to give her speech. She dropped her cap. Dave and I looked at each other quizzically, and then she dropped her gown. Whoa! Naked as the day she was born. Now, David, some might call him a control freak. All of us might call him a control freak. But we share a mutual dislike of surprises. And I looked at now very red-faced Dave, and he started to get up out of his chair. And I instinctively reached over, grabbed his arm, and sit down in my lawyer voice. Don't touch her. And then I added, let her finish. Lawyers imagine all kinds of things, lawsuits. And he did it for once. I think the only time he did what he was told. He sat back down and we both got the emoji frozen smile. I'm not happy. I'm not happy. She delivered, but this young lady delivered a really beautiful, heartfelt speech. It really was, about how she had struggled with self-confidence until she attended Long Trail. That she had evolved to the point where she felt confident enough to express herself in her own unique way. That she owed it all to LTS and a very supportive family. I recall an ovation, mainly from her family members. I saw frozen smiles like the ones Dave and I had. I saw some stun looks. But she finished her speech, she put her gown back on and returned to her seat. She forgot her cap. I was a well-brought-up young boy by my father who said, if the lady drops an item of apparel, you should pick it up and return it to her. So I went over and picked up her cap and returned it to her saying, I think you forgot something. Well, the next graduate went right up like nothing had happened. Tremendous speech. And every one of them lined up and gave tremendous speeches like nothing had happened. After the conclusion, Dave and I retreated to one side of the stage and waited for the reactions from those attending. They were mainly positive in a, did that really happen? kind of way. There were several brave girls, references, lots of oh my, and a few, are you guys all right? As the crowd drifted away, David turned to me and said, you know, this is the first time we hired a photographer to film. And with that, he pulled out one of those cheroots that he he offered one to me. I was not a smoker. We both inhaled. Then we thought about consequences. David looks at me and says, what about the donors? What are they going to think? I turned to David and I said, what about the photographer? Where is he? So what was the rest of the story? Well, it's a long trail story. First, after emergency board meetings and I'm sure many administrative meetings, successfully completing the graduation ceremony was then made a condition of obtaining a diploma. I don't know if that's still the case today, but that was the remedy. Second, our hero photographer, despite a monetary offer from one of those bottom-feeding, sleazy TV programs, turned the film over to the school. Third, our graduate did graduate, went on to college and a successful career. Fourth, this is the best part. Within a couple of days of the event, David phoned me and he was very excited. He said, guess what? Tell me. One of the school's greatest supporters just came into my office, handed me a very large check, and said, any school that can graduate an impressive student like that deserves my support. And that statement, that affirmation is the real story behind the naked graduation. In 1975, Dave and Rini had a vision of a safe school. These words are taken out of, I assume they're still in the mission statement, they always were. Safe school where each student is considered unique, check that box, where everyone is known and valued with daily encouragement of imagination, creativity, and self-expression. She checked all the boxes. And this is my favorite, I've loved this ever since I came to the school, where students are taught how to think, not what to think.
Yeah. So that's the story, and that's LTS to me. It's a funny story in many ways, unless you were on stage that day. But I keep coming back to that statement. Any school that can graduate a student like that deserves my support. One of the biggest donors that this school's ever had. And this is within days of a potentially embarrassing event for the school. But we all came up smelling like roses, including our graduate. What a remarkable school David and Rini have left for all of us, our children and our grandchildren. Thanks, Rini. The next speaker. Someone I know very well. Catherine Rockwell McLaughlin.
There's a lot of pages.
Did I really write it that long? There you go.
Thanks for the introduction, Chip. To add to my introduction, I am also a member of the best class ever, which I'm sure will be disputed later. My mom always told me there's no such thing as a bad short speech, and Dave taught me in 9th grade law class the importance of precise language. So that said, I'm going to attempt to stuff 30 years of Dave lessons and stories into the next 4 minutes. I started in Long Trail in 7th grade, and that was the only year I rode the bus. By bus, I mean yellow van with lights and probably holes in the floor. We have come a long way. The bus driver on the Meadowy Valley Speedway route had an 80s blonde perm and a lead foot. If I wasn't standing on the white line for long enough for her to see me and slow down, she didn't. I'd sheepishly get back in the car and Mom would drive me to school shaking her head. One morning, we knew we were late, so we were in no particular rush heading down Sykes Hollow. Lucky thing, because we nearly hit the bus. Dave was coming to get me. Dave didn't leave kids behind. By 9th grade, Parker Rice and I were running the school store, and the Whalen addition was under construction. More than once, Dave took me into the construction zone for a tour. The excuse was to see the new school store. But much to my delight, it always involved poking around the rest of the space. Dave involved kids. One year, the play we took to the One Act Festival involved me playing an old lady, but also moving a really heavy 4x8 plywood platform. I will never forget how funny Dave thought that juxtaposition was, and how genuinely impressed he seemed with how casually I hoisted the platform, or at least how casual I made it appear. Dave was a fanatical supporter of kids. Now I'm back at Long Trail as an adult, entrusted in part with keeping Dave's legacy thriving. The Board of Trustees is excited to roll out events, campaigns, and strategic plans to celebrate the upcoming 50th. We hope you join us. The current draft of the agenda truly encapsulates the history and future of Long Trail. In the meantime, I will continue to hold us to the same high standards Dave held me and so many others. Dave left us more than an academic institution. He left us a community. We're glad you're here and part of this celebration, and we hope you stay connected for years to come. And now, I have the honor of reading Marilyn Chapman's remarks. She sends her best from her daughter's wedding in Hawaii, where there probably isn't air conditioning either. Marilyn was a trustee from 1980 to 1988, and a teacher from 81 to 98, and possibly the first teacher I had at Long Trail. So no pressure on me to do justice to her remarks. Dave Wilson was a pain in the neck. He was an obnoxious, bossy, penny-pinching taskmaster. In my role as a trustee in the early 80s, he always gave me a hard time when I complained about the lengthy board meetings. Oh, pipe down, he'd say. We've got a lot to do. He strode around the school, turning off lights and turning down thermostats. He made teachers and students do chores, load wood for the furnace, shovel snow, wash windows, clean the bathrooms, and on and on. We even suffered through using porta potties and oil lanterns because he insisted we stay open during the October storm of '88, when power was out for a week. Every other school was closed, not Long Trail. He was omnipresent even outside of school. Neither students nor teachers could escape him. No one could. As a teacher, you bumped into him at your peril. He would holler across the street in the middle of town, "Hey, have you gotten your student reports in yet?" "Soon, Dave, soon." He would point a finger at a student in the hallway, and with a wicked look and cackle, "You're going down. You're going down." He told his law students that he never really read their Friday essays. He just threw them down the stairs, and whichever one landed at the bottom got an A. Students took to taping fishing weights in the margins. His homework expectations for teachers and students made the International Baccalaureate look like a cakewalk. Daily student assessments, feedback with full commentary had us teachers perpetually hollow-eyed. Downtime was not in Dave's vocabulary. He led by example, always on, focused, and working. I loved my time at Long Trail, both as a trustee and a teacher. I loved Dave. He was an upright, good man, unconventional and adaptable, a dedicated, grounded visionary who cared deeply and abidingly about Long Trail, his students, and his staff. In my 30 years in the education business, I was never as inspired by a leader as I was by Dave. Teaching methods I used and counted on in my time after Long Trail, I learned and polished here. Commitment to the day in and day out rigors of excellence I saw modeled here in the community he and Reem created. But not just excellence, it was quirky, idiosyncratic, and fun. Life at Long Trail was shot through with joy. Room hockey on the pond, morning meetings where Dave was lampooned, everyone on the bus singing Pretty Little Angel Eyes, swimming in the Meadowy on spring afternoons after chores, whole school projects where we all took parts in acting out a Shakespeare play, and of course, his coveted headmaster holidays. Dave Wilson was the original article. How lucky I am to have been part of those halcyon days, to have lived large in the small world of Long Trail School, created by Reem and Dave. And at this juncture, I'd like to invite Kim Rizzio and Courtney Callow.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am so honored to share my memories with Dave. There are so many. I promise I will try to do this in 5 minutes, but we'll see. We'll see. I actually beat you, Wayne. I met Dave in 1979 as an 8th grader at MES, that's what it used to be called, when he used to be the admissions director. So he came and did his little recruitment show, and Julie Roughgarden, who is here, where are you, Julie? Over here, was the lone brave person to head to Long Trail from the 8th grade. I was a skier, softball player, I wanted to play sports. So but Julie ended up being the only graduate in 1984 from Long Trail. So bravo, Julie. So fast forward to August 1988, I just graduated from UVM. I'm back in town. The guy I was with currently, who I've now been married to for 35 years, refused to go back to New York or Connecticut. I wanted to do a translating job. I was a German major, I think I said that, in the city. And he was a diehard skier, still is. So we stayed here. My mother looked at me and she said, "You will use your German degree." We would, absolutely. So I said, "What the heck am I?" So she cut out a part-time German teaching ad in the Vermont News Guide and stuck it on my door. And as they say, the rest was history. So I started here. I had my daunting interview with Dave. His office at that point was up in the what do we call it before, the bellows? The gallows. But everybody always had to go up the stairs to Dave's office. So he sat me down and he said, "You can speak German?" I said, "I can. My grandfather's from Germany." "You're hired." "I can't pay you a lot." Handed me a copy of Horace is Compromised by Ted Sizer, a very popular book at the time. Said, "Read it and see if you want to be a part of this team." So what I did was I spent so much time with him here, and then certainly after he retired. I sort of did what we shared, and then we did what we didn't share. So Dave and I shared a work ethic, a Protestant work ethic on overdrive. We were both Scots, both Presbyterians background. And so he quickly realized I grew up in the food industry. My dad was a chef, and I grew up in an inn, so I knew what 24/7 meant. So we also had an entrepreneurial kindred spirits, and I was so fortunate to do so many things here. And that, and he was always game. Dave was adventurous. He was a visionary, as Wayne said. He was a pioneer. So I said to him one day, I said, Barb had started the summer program. It was a tutoring program. I had just had my kids, and I said, "I need some place for them to go in the summer. I want to start a summer camp, LT Summer." He said, "As long as it makes money, I'm game." The first summer, he's in his office, and we had literally little guys, and one came out running his naked thing again, as fast as he can around the corner into Dave's office, and I hear, "Courtney!" But we ended up, LT Summer still going strong, and the other hysterical that I've done a lot with International as well, and he was so funny because he was a Rotarian, part of the Rotary program, so we would have Rotary students here. Those were our very first, I think, were the Guatemalan students. But we had Rotary students coming in, and this poor kid was from Santander, Spain, on the northern coast of Spain, and he was always surfing, and he got in trouble because he was never going to school. So they sent him here. His parents thought that we were near the ocean. At that point, that's when snowboarding was getting really going, so I would take him up to Bromley to snowboard all the time. Well, his name was Jesus. Dave called him Jesus. All the time. All right, second thing we shared, when the school was growing and we were getting to a point where we were sort of, having growing pains and ready to kind of kill each other, we had Sherry Alper come in and do the Myers-Briggs test with all of us. I had introduced the word marketing, was not liked. Dave Curtis, I see you're out there, so I know we're what is marketing? I want to teach. So we did this interest inventory test, and Lo and behold, Dave and I were exactly the same. ESFPs. So these people love vibrant experiences, engaging in life eagerly, and taking pleasure in discovering the unknown. Experiential learning, risk takers, creativity. I have it in my desk at Willoughby's now. A cluttered desk is a sign of genius. We weren't always organized. But he was always game for trying out new things. And that goes as well as when I went running into his offices one day. We had always gone to Hulbert, which was this tremendous place up in Fairleigh, Vermont. But I had heard a student say he'd never been to the ocean. And I was like, what? How? You've never been to the ocean? So I went, I said, Dave, could we take the whole school to the ocean and camp? And he goes, let's do it. And we did. Lastly, and this has been said over and over, but such a passionate educator. He did care about helping everybody to succeed. Not only did he go get you, Catherine, when I first started, there was a young girl who did not get out of bed, and he would, you couldn't do this today, but he would go and get her out of bed and make sure she got to school. He cared that much. At one point, we had to switch over and call, I don't remember who told us, they couldn't be kids, they had to be students. They were his kids. He cared, that was his family. He cared so desperately that everybody have a unique experience, find their strengths, and succeed. Lastly, we loved animals. My dogs, Ellsworth, Beverly, Willoughby, went through the halls along with Catherine and let Kim talk about the cats. Dave is more of a cat person, Wayne was the dog person, but we spent a lot of money at Pelcher's because they ate a lot of lunches out of the cubbies. Yep. And other things. Gardening, Dave was an incredible vegetable gardener. I loved the flower garden. I was always happy to see him doing something because his favorite line to me was when I was leaving, if it was 5 or 6, well, you're doing a half day today, so it was really nice in the summertime to see that he had that passion. He loved to garden. We both loved the Bee Gees, we both loved Fleetwood Mac, we both loved to dance. Okay, what we didn't share, I have really thin hair. Dave loved his hair. In fact, one of the boys, I said, who was greeting us, he said, I'm going to get my hair cut. I said, don't. Dave would love your hair. And for some reason, we always were getting our hair cut at the same time as American Hairlines. And he loved, because after I had my twins, I lost a lot of hair. So he loved to say, look at this. Loved his hair. Loved rousing people. He didn't really have a love of Christmas. I was more the Fezziwig. He was a little bit Scrooge's. It got in the way with running the school. Why did we have to take out time to celebrate? In fact, he made me do re-enrollment a number of years right after Christmas. I said, Dave, people are going to throw the things away. They're not even going to. We're doing re-enrollment. Okay, Dave. I don't have a love of cars. Dave has always hated my cars. I had minivans. They were a mess. They had kids, dogs. Dave loved cars. And he loved NASCAR. I don't know. Sorry, Michael. And I guess the last thing I will say, as far as what we didn't share, I did development for the last 3 years of my career here. And I told him, there's 2 things I'm not doing, Dave. I'm not hanging out at the Dorset Post Office waiting for donors to come out. And number 2, I'm not going to do laps around to see if Mr. Whalen's sitting on his porch. So he did help me quite a bit, and I did enjoy raising money, but not as much as he did. So I'm going to leave you. I said to Kim, should I tell the story? And this kind of goes into what we share and didn't share. As I started, I was 21. I was a young girl, and Dave was daunting at that point. A control freak. He spent so much money on sticky notes. We would come in and there'd be sticky notes the next morning, and I would be like, does he ever have spend time with his family? He was furious when I had my kids. So I'm so happy to say that I paved the way for people having kids at Long Trail. There's no maternity leave, paternity leave. It was, when can you get back here? So, I was still, after I had Julia in 91, and then I had the twins in 94. We were still in the little building. There was no faculty lounge where I could go pump. There was no, so I was in the hot water closet heater. And I had to put something on the door that said, you know, pumping, Courtney is pumping. So it took me probably 10 to 15, I don't remember, it took me a long time before I could tell this story. And still so many people don't know it. Really, I don't even know if I ever told you. But we still had the little kitchen, we all in the triangle thing. And I'm out there, and I'm getting my coffee, and the student's right next to me, and I see my Tupperware that says Courtney on it. Dave used that for his coffee. I'm like, what? And I was just so embarrassed. I didn't know what to do. I didn't tell him, I think, for 20 years. But I got him because when I told him I was having twins, he hung up on me. And I called right back and I said, I am having twins. I'm 7 months pregnant. I didn't find out that I was 7 months pregnant. I said, you're going to help me with this. So I got him later when I said, guess what? There's one thing I have on you. And one thing we have shared. So anyway, Dave, thank you for creating Long Trail. Thank you for hiring me, allowing me to have an incredible 33-year career at the school. And most of all, thank you for supporting me over the last 3 years in my new venture at Willoughby's. I will miss you coming in for your plain cruller and a cup of coffee, bursting through the door. Did you miss me yet? I love you and miss you, Dave. And I am so proud to introduce my very, very dear friend, like a sister, who is not in the FSP.
So when Wayne started us off, he talked about the variety of emotions that we were going to feel when we came together today. And I didn't realize that you left one out. I'm sitting here listening to Courtney and I was feeling jealous. I did not get interviewed for my job up in Dave's office. I did not get the walk up those stairs. I was interviewed in the kitchen on a Sunday after church. So, and I will say that I have always been super proud to be able to say that I was the first Long Trail English teacher who was not married to the head of school. Jealous of that time in the office, though. Good afternoon. Thousands of students, children and young adults were, are, and continue to be enhanced by the magnetism of a Long Trail education. The adults of the community, parents, families, staff, and volunteers have also been the beneficiaries of the opportunities of LTS. I am forever grateful to Dave and Reen for enveloping me into this place and giving me the chance to be part of the magic that exists here. It's so hard to pick just a couple of anecdotes to share. I'm glad that there have been a few ahead of me, for sure. Not only because I was fortunate enough to have years, and there are a lot of people in this room and probably on Zoom who say, oh yeah, we know that face. I've had years to reflect upon, but also because Dave enjoyed a good laugh, as we've heard, and well, frankly, Dave gave us a lot to laugh about. And he loved that. He loved that. So here's my quick list. I had to start with communication. Dave loved to communicate. He didn't always know what he was doing in terms of technology, but he was committed to trying to keep up. Some of us, many of us, will remember the pre-cell phone days of Dave Wilson with that butt phone, right? It was clunky, it was the size of a brick, and I think it even had an antenna on it. And he carried it everywhere. Always stuck in his pocket, set down somewhere, just in case he needed it. Dave's Facebook presence is legendary. So many well wishes, right? We always got the happy birthday kid, or usually he didn't count the years for me at least, but there was always a well wish there on Facebook, or that's my long trail, Catherine, the best class ever kinds of comments are on there. Unfortunately, Dave didn't always realize that what he wrote was visible to everyone. And now and then, you might be the recipient of a not so private message that lots of people can let you know about. I still have in my phone texts from Dave. Dave and I used to text about the Steelers. We text a lot about the Steelers through the winters, and I would check in on Dave and Reen's travel plans. I'm sure many of you remember similar communications. Transportation came up when I was thinking about what to talk about. I'm not sure how many of you can say that your boss taught you to drive. The LTS school van, probably with holes in the floor and those lights that sometimes come off when people drive under things that are shorter than we realize. Not me, and I'm not telling that story. But in 1992, before I even entered my classroom, I had driving lessons with Dave. And he would take me around the neighborhood, perhaps checking for Mr. Whalen, I don't know. Didn't realize that, but we would go down on Peace Street, down near Cutler Park, and Dave would make me stop on the hill, and a little bit of pressure here, he'd say, "Don't let the van roll back in the least, or else you're gonna fail your test." Okay, I was hired to be a teacher, and here I was, suddenly, nervous about the brake pedal and the gas. From there, it evolved to driving Greenie's station wagon. You guys may remember some field trips in that station wagon with the golden retriever hair of whatever dog it was at the time in there too, going along with us. Admiring the cars Courtney mentioned, but never driving Dave's car. I still have my bus driver endorsement. Thank you, Dave. Another thing I wanted to talk about is pitching in. That's something that I will always remember. Dave was rolling up his sleeves, whatever the event, to help. No matter what was needed, Dave was there. I can't tell you how many years he washed dishes at the Congo Church for one of our ZD dinners that the Honor Society was hosting, carrying crates of fruit off of the buses. You guys remember the fruit fundraisers? Or driving the bus over to New York State, to the greenhouse, to collect the poinsettias that we would sell in the winter, or the hanging baskets that we would sell in the spring, again, making money for Long Trail School. Dave went deep sea fishing with students in Ocean City. He helped to swab the deck at Hulbert when we were out there doing the square dancing with Everett from Morford. You guys remember, perhaps? Dave was an involved leader. So speaking of pitching in, many of us recall how Dave disliked waste. A lunch left in a place too tempting was liable before the dog got to it, or before it needed refrigeration, sometimes before a student got to have his lunch. And you'd see Dave walking down the hallway, enjoying. There was no day after leftover when Dave was on the prowl for a snack. I recall how much we laughed. Okay, and I need some help here because I'm not sure how strong my voice is, but as Courtney said, I'm going to talk about Kitty. Those of you out here, if you want to help me out, when Dave needed the cat to come, or when he just felt like entertaining us, and we get a very high-pitched Kitty, and it pervaded the campus. Well, there you go, exactly. I'll never forget that. And when he told us good-naturedly that we were going down, we shook a little. April Fools allowed us a focused day to make a joke with Dave. There was the year that the faculty all called in sick. There was a year that we all dressed in a khaki shirt or khaki pants and a blue shirt, and I think probably some bricks in our back pockets for the bug phone. There was sticky note wallpaper, not only in his upstairs office, but I think students once put some all over his car. We had a lot of fun together in the heavy work of Long Trail. Everyone was Dave's kid in some way. Boy, were we lucky. He took such intense interest and pride in each and every one of us. In closing, Dave and Renee gave me a home, a family, a place to grow my abilities and my career, perspective of all kinds, but mostly, and this one I still need his help with, the reminder to laugh at myself. Loads of adventures and great memories. Thank you, David Reed. So it is my pleasure to invite the student group to the stage. That is Melissa McGuire Vanderminden, Karen Leslie Prouty, Lynn Salkin Morris, and Justin Jansen.
Good afternoon. Greenie asked, and I was honored. No individual impacted my teenage self more than Dave Wilson. I came to LTS in need of change. Dave gave me that opportunity and showed me a path to which began the journey of where I am now. Currently, I'm an IB math teacher at Bedford High School, the only public high school in the state of New Hampshire that is an IB school. I would not be where I am today if it were not for the lessons that I learned from Dave. One lesson that I am very, very fond of, I learned totally by accident. And it was after school on a Friday night. Back in the day before technology, there was no internet to assist in making up any documents of any kind. Documents were created by a typewriter or by hand, which of course has no autocorrect. With that said, as a junior in high school, I, along with help from my friends, who I can't name names, I created my own fake ID. I was so proud of my accomplishment, and that's an understatement. I was so excited I couldn't wait to use it. At the end of the week, along with a few friends, we went out to Manchester for a night on the town. I had my fake ID. Well, we really didn't have a plan, so we started at the Quality Inn. a favorite haunt of Dave's, which of course I didn't know at the time. Unlike Indiana Jones, I did not choose wisely. I sat up at the bar with such excitement. I offered up my work of art, my fake ID, and ordered my very first drink. I was completely oblivious to my surroundings because I was just so proud of pulling off that perfect caper. Let me repeat, I did not choose wisely. As I sat there, reveling in my success, the gentleman with his back to me swiveled around in his chair and asked me, "Do you really want to do that?" Imagine my horror as I turned and I was staring right at Dave. I was caught red-handed, in complete shock, and needless to say, I left without that drink. As the weekend neared an end, I felt safe. There were no phone calls home to report my escapade. Phew. However, upon arrival at LTS on Monday morning, there was Dave calling, "Hey, miss." That's what he called me back then. He wanted to chat. That was the beginning of the end. For those of you that don't know, back in the early years, there was a wood pile at LTS. We bagged kindling. It was one of our chores. However, on other occasions, it served another purpose. It was for those that made errors in judgment. As I conferenced with Dave that morning, I argued that my error in judgment did not happen on school grounds, and he had no jurisdiction over that area of my life. I learned right then and there self-representation is a novel idea, but it didn't help in my case. Dave decided my error in judgment deserved hard time. I could no longer remember how many hours I spent on that wood pile, but let me assure you, the lesson was learned. There's a song that sums up the life lessons, and there were many that Dave taught me. The song is "Break My Stride" by Matthew Wilder. The chorus of the song is, "Nobody's gonna break my stride, nobody's gonna slow me down. I've got to keep on moving." I can see him now, joining me, dancing around that little kitchen room in that first building. He is the face of those words in that chorus telling me to keep on moving. Quitting is not and never will be an option. Whatever hand life dealt, he encouraged me to be humble and learn from it. He told me to be kind, have empathy, for you don't know the paths that others have chosen to take. Most importantly, he repeatedly told me not to settle and let others define me, to keep moving forward with every success, every challenge, every setback, and every failure, and there were many. I have heard those words. I have seen his face and envisioned him dancing around the room, encouraging me to keep on moving. Dave gave me the courage not to let others define me and to stand firmly in my convictions. Those convictions have defined who I am today as an individual, as a mother, and as an educator. I never thought I'd be an educator. I thank Dave for believing in me, and more importantly, for teaching me to believe in myself. I hope to live up to his expectations of who I am continuing to become by the marks I leave behind in this life. I have many more lessons to learn, and I'm sure that song with his memory will bring the guidance I will need, enabling me to keep on moving. We are all so blessed by knowing Dave, as he will live on forever in the hearts of all the lives he touched here at LTS. But he will even live on in the lives of many he never met through the values he instilled in all of us. My life, my heart, and my soul was changed for the better by knowing Dave. Now I can keep on moving, and yes, choose wisely. Godspeed, my dear friend. Now I'd like to introduce Karen Leslie.
First, Melissa, I want it known that he always called home for me. I think we're going to spend some time afterward discussing that. I'm not sure already. I'm going into this feeling like, Dave, really? Dave, come on. My name is Karen Leslie Prouty, and as a 1989 graduate of Long Trail School, I am honored to speak in remembrance of David Dean Wilson. Feels as though Dave is here with us in spirit, standing in the corner, watching and listening, twirling his mustache. No one has mentioned the twirling of the mustache, with that familiar gleam in his eye. I believe that he's pleased that we have gathered here to celebrate his life. Today we honor the extraordinary life of Dave, a man whose impact on Long Trail School and our broader community is both profound and enduring. For 32 incredible years, Dave was not just the co-founder, teacher, and headmaster of this institution. He was its heart and soul. His dedication went beyond traditional roles. He embodied leadership, passion, and genuine care. Dave and Reenie's journey with Long Trail School began as a vision, and through their tireless efforts, that vision transformed into a thriving, dynamic environment for learning and growth. Dave's influence extended beyond the classroom and resonated throughout the entire community, leaving an indelible mark on everyone he met. Dave, along with Reenie and Jerry and Barb, created a second home for me. I think I'm the second person that said that. My brother Lance began at LTS in the early 80s, entering 8th grade, and when I joined in 7th grade the following year, I was initially quite hesitant. But it didn't take long for me to realize that Long Trail was exactly where I wanted to be. The exceptional education, the chance to explore my passions, the unwavering support and encouragement I received were invaluable. Long Trail School is where I met my husband, Chad Prouty, my partners in crime, Andrew Reed and Jamie Hathaway, sitting right there. Yes, there he is, watch him. My college roommate, Nicole Stratman, and I was introduced to the Apple computer and word processing. Without Long Trail, my path would have been different. Dave, Reenie, Barb, and Jerry, they educated, mentored, guided, supported, and encouraged me, which in turn solidified my desire to educate, counsel, and help others. One of Dave's many talents was his skill in fundraising. Whenever he discussed raising money for the school, you could see a particular sparkle in his eye, a vigorous twirl of the mustache, sometimes accompanied by a determined grimace. These were the signs that we were preparing to champion a cause. And it was clear that those on the receiving end of his efforts might find their wallets a little lighter. Dave's fundraising crusades were nothing short of masterful. As students, we did our part too, spending countless hours on the woodpile, stuffing bags of kindling, raking
raking leaves of homes throughout Dorset and Manchester, which funded great experiences such as our 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C., or riding bikes in Cape Cod. As a civics teacher, Dave was nothing short of a force of nature. His fierce engagement with politics and civic issues brought a vibrant energy to his teaching. He believed that education extended beyond textbooks and tests. It was about understanding the world and questioning it, and most importantly, preparing to shape it. Dave thrived on debate, on discussion and the dynamic exchange of ideas. His classroom was a stage for dialogue, where every student felt the thrill of intellectual discovery and the power of their own voice. Dave's charisma was not merely a trait, but a gift. He inspired those around him with his boundless enthusiasm and unwavering belief in the potential of every individual. His leadership style was unique and deeply personal. He was the kind of leader who didn't merely direct. He engaged, listened, and above all, he cared. His ability to connect with people, to truly understand their concerns and aspirations, set him apart. When challenges arose, and they did with regularity that kept him on his toes, Dave saw them not as obstacles, but as opportunities. He approached every problem with a characteristic blend of analytical sharpness and creative flair. For Dave, a problem was not something to be solved in isolation, but a chance to collaborate, to communicate, and if necessary, to dramatize in a way that would make the solution even clearer. His approach was both practical and imaginative, and it was with this synergy that made him an exceptional problem solver, particularly when it came to student behavior. I truly believe he enjoyed putting on his detective hat and getting to the root of the problem. I did walk those stairs many times to his office. I recall those times I sat in Dave's office, perched in a chair on the opposite side of his desk. He would begin the interrogation with firm, direct questions, in which I would respond with equally firm, direct stare, determined to not relinquish a shred of information. With great success, I did. As I stared at Dave during his many questions, all I could think about was, what would he do if he didn't have a mustache? Dave was just as determined to get to the bottom of any given situation, and his success rate was outstanding. He often gathered a full story with evidence to back his claims. He was a master investigator and interrogator. As a mother of a 16-year-old and twin 13-year-old boys, I respect this quality. Dave taught me a lot. I believe it to be true that Dave and I bonded because of our determined, inquisitive ways, and certainly because of our propensity toward mischief. One memorable instance of our mischievous bond took place on a typical Friday night in Manchester 40 years ago. Friday nights were Dave's night at the Quality Restaurant in Manchester. It was also the night that most teenagers gathered at Rite Aid, which was directly across from the Quality. We would meet, we would make a plan for the evening. On this particular Friday night, I was honing my leadership skills and demonstrating exquisite problem solving while I delegated roles to my peers. Who's buying the keg? Who's collecting the money? Where are we going? How are we spreading the word? When I noticed Dave in his gray Nova passing back and forth on a Friday. Now, as an adult, I think about, well, he could have just been trying to find a parking place. Well, in reality, I know he just wanted to know what we were all up to. His curiosity was, well, it reminds me of the proverb, curiosity killed the cat. So at that moment, I realized that action had to be taken for what I perceived as nosy behavior. So I sleuthed over to his car, which was parked in the lot across from the quality. And I successfully began letting the air out of his tires. I think I was successfully on tire 2, maybe tire 3, when he ran out and caught me. I will never forget the look on his face. He looked shocked and surprised. And to this day, I wonder, really? He was surprised? How could he be surprised? This event became the cornerstone of a valued and highly respected relationship. Deep down, I know Dave admired and relished in my mischievous ways. He certainly loved telling this story loudly, usually with a microphone, to any audience he could find. The 200 people at my wedding sure did find it outrageous and funny. Dave had a way of remaining calm, even in the most trying of situations. Like when Jamie Hathaway ran around to all the new whiteboards and wrote, "Lenin lives," in permanent marker. Or when Andrew Reed and Chad Prouty pushed Reenie's Volkswagen car up to the entrance of the school, blocking both the entrance and the exit. Now as a parent, I realize we simply tortured them. And yet we were always welcomed back. And usually with a smile, most often from Reenie. Because she didn't know half the story, so she would smile. Dave's support and encouragement were foundational to his relationships. His guidance, mentorship, and community rallying were his constants. His belief in people was unwavering, and his ability to uplift and motivate was extraordinary. As we reflect on Dave's life today, it's clear that his legacy extends beyond the walls of the Long Trail School. It lives in the hearts and minds of all he touched. His spirit will continue to inspire future generations, reminding us of the power of genuine care, thoughtful leadership, and the boundless possibilities that arise from every challenge. Let us celebrate Dave's incredible journey and the remarkable impact he had on so many lives. His spirit will live forever and be a guiding light, a beacon of leading with heart, engaging with purpose, and making a difference in the world. Thank you, Dave, for everything you gave us. Your legacy will live on in the lessons you taught, the lives you touched, and the community you built. You will be deeply missed, but never forgotten. Thank you. I would like to introduce Lynn Salty Morris.
When I applied to college, Dave was the subject of my college essay. I had not read it in, 29 years, but my mom pulled it out a few weeks ago. The topic was, discuss a person who's influenced you. If asked to write that same essay today, I likely would still choose Dave, and the essay itself would not be much different. I first met Dave when I was just shy of 11 years old, visiting Long Trail as a prospective student. My parents and I sat in his office upstairs with the peaked ceiling and the window overlooking the front room. School Kitty was walking around, jumping from his desk to his lap. I have no idea what we spoke about, but that began my deep relationship with both Long Trail and with Dave. The following fall, I arrived at Long Trail as a reserve 7th grader. I don't remember many specific interactions with Dave during my first few years at Long Trail, but I do remember his constant presence in our lives. He drove the bus when needed, that us tennis and paddle tennis. He wrote a note on each of our biweekly report cards. He peered out from his office window onto the front room below. He walked the halls and exchanged jokes with students, usually about whose law paper was the heaviest or could be thrown the farthest and would thus earn the highest grade. And with teachers, did we ever find out whether he or Barb was older? At the end of every day, he'd be back in the halls again, checking to make sure that chores were completed before sending us on our way. Dave cared for each of us as if we were his own. One day, I took the bus home when I wasn't supposed to. After my mom called to find out where I was, Dave drove from Dorset to Winhall to make sure I had arrived safely. You can imagine how surprised I was when I saw him driving up our driveway. When I got my college acceptance, he was one of my first calls. I know he was excited for me because the next day, rather than Reen's neatly written congratulatory sign hanging out the door, there was a less perfect one written by Dave. Lynn, congrats on accept to Hamilton. Even having experienced the early years at Long Trail, when it was surrounded by cornfields, had classrooms without doors, and a cowbell signaled the end of each period, I sometimes question my memories because they all seem so unbelievable now. Can you imagine spreading out report cards on a kitchen counter where anyone could see them? Or recording every incomplete homework assignment on a single sheet of paper and then sending copies of that sheet of paper home at the end of the week? Dave knew everything that was going on. He was stern when he needed to be, while also having an incredible sense of humor, which allowed him to bond with all types of students. He teased some of us endlessly and cheerfully put up with practical jokes, like the day his car was covered with Post-it notes, or the time the entire school hid inside the coat closet. The turning point in my relationship with Dave came in 9th grade. That was the year I had law, a rite of passage for every Long Trail student. It was also 1992, the year of the presidential election between Bill Clinton and George Bush. Every day, Dave would greet me with some tidbit of election news. Sometimes it was true, sometimes it was false, but I needed to be on my toes. Each night, I watched the evening news so I'd know if Dave was fibbing. My parents were skeptical, but he had me fully convinced that he was a staunch Republican while I was rooting for Bill Clinton. It's laughable now, knowing Dave's true political opinions. Dave's law class and those months during the 1992 election taught me so much. They taught me to do my research, to know my facts, and to defend my position. Most importantly, they boosted my self-confidence and taught me that Dave was not someone to be feared. Before long, I was no longer the quiet student sitting along the windows in the front room listening to announcements at morning meeting. I was one of the ones making the announcements. From Honor Society birthday greetings to student council updates, these were small steps in my development that pulled me out of my shell and helped make me the person I am today. During my senior year, I planned, with some coaching from my mom, the entire school trip to Washington, D.C. Looking back, this is mind-boggling. Was Dave crazy to entrust a 17-year-old with this responsibility? I don't think I could ever do the same. But Dave had immense faith in us. I will never forget him turning to me as we walked out of the Air and Space Museum and asking, "Where do we go next, Lynn?" Directly or indirectly, Dave taught me many lessons that were critical to my growth. I learned from him that teachers, leaders, and administrators are your partners, not distant and intimidating figures. Since Long Trail, I have never shied from going straight to the top when I saw a problem that needed to be solved. Long Trail's rules that required us to call our teachers at home ensured that I could easily approach college and graduate school professors for help. Now I find myself passing these lessons on to my elementary age children, frequently encouraging them to speak directly with their teachers when they need help. For years, Dave watched over all of us from that window in his office. Regardless of whether you struggled as a student or excelled, Dave saw the best in each of us. The emergence of Facebook allowed him to continue to watch us after we left Long Trail and grew up, got married, had children, and got jobs and promotion. Dave could always be counted on to be among the first to like or comment on a Facebook post or wish you a happy birthday. I have always referred referred to Dave as my headmaster, as if everyone has one of those. As life took me further from Long Trail, I wasn't sure people would really understand when I said my headmaster. So I started to add some extra words to the description, like headmaster of my middle and high school. But this longer phrase never sounded right. Dave was not just the head of a school I attended, he was my headmaster. The one who helped me grow, who entrusted me with responsibilities well beyond my age, who pushed me and challenged me, and who relished watching me and each of his past students succeed in our endeavors. After all, we were all part of the best class ever. And now I'd like to introduce Justin Jansen, class of 2025.
I'd like to start off by thanking you for allowing me to speak at this celebration of Dave's life. And I would also like to say that, Colin, your tires will be safe. Good afternoon. As mentioned, my name is Justin Jansen, and I am a member of the Long Trail class of 2025, the self-described second best class. Dave has known me since I was a little kid, about yay high, running around the halls of Long Trail during the summer as a curious cricket. But I first officially met Dave at my aunt's hair salon, American Hairlines, in Manchester. And I remember him asking me how I liked Long Trail, and me replying, I want to go there when I'm older. Not knowing eventually I would. As a current student at Long Trail, I greatly valued the friendship I had developed with Dave. I don't think many high school students nowadays can really say they were friends with the founder of their school. When Dave would come visit the school, he would always stop me in the halls to ask how I was doing, how classes were, and what kind of music I was playing in Jeffrey's class. Every time I saw Dave, he had a genuine interest in what was going on in a current student's life. Today, at Long Trail, sorry. Even outside of school, he would ask me how everything was, work, school, sports, etc. Speaking of work, when I started working at Willoughby's, my goal was to be as polite as possible to everyone that came through those doors. When Dave first came in, since I started working, I greeted him by saying, "Good morning, Mr. Wilson." Oh boy. Taken aback and with an almost disgusted look on his face, he proceeded to tell me to just call him Dave. I love talking to Dave about stories of Long Trail. My favorite story is how he had everything ready for this school. How he had all the paperwork, all these, whatever that he may have needed to finally start the school of his dreams. He went right up to the Department of Education the day before his appointment to submit the application. He forgot one thing. The name for the school. Kind of important. Exhausted at 2 a.m. in the morning, he looked at a map of southern Vermont. On the wall, he saw the Long Trail. So, as history would say, that became the name of the school. History doesn't say that. History. It was these little things that showed me that he was still wanting to be included in the current life, in the life of a current student at Long Trail. For many, Long Trail has been a core part of their lives. For me, Long Trail is core to my life. As without it, I would not have had the opportunities or experience that this school has given to me, all thanks to Dave and Renee Wilson. In closing, I would like to say thank you to both Dave and Renee for providing me and many other students with a great community to learn from, grow from, and to call a family. Without further ado, Renee, the stage is all yours.
Thank you. First of all, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank all of you present here today and all who have sent me notes of condolence upon Dave's passing, and all those here at Long Trail, faculty, staff, and students who have pulled together to create this celebration. Dave would have been 83 last Sunday, August 11th. You have extended praise to Dave for his sense of purpose as co-founder of Long Trail School. But all of you who have jumped on our bandwagon over the soon-to-be 50 years have expanded that vision and will continue to bring it to ever-expanding heights. Particularly over this past winter, Dave and I expressed to one another how grateful we are for our families, our career here at LTS, and our marriage. We simply could not have asked for more in our lives. We have indeed been blessed. I would like to expand our gratitude to this community at large. We are all blessed to live here, not just for the natural beauty that surrounds us, but more importantly, for the opportunity available to all of us. The entrepreneurial opportunities, educational opportunities offered by school choice, so that students can benefit from the school that best fits their needs. The philanthropic spirit of the community, the abundance of the arts and outdoor activities. We are all, indeed, blessed to live here. 6 years after our retirement in 2007, the class of 2013 asked Dave to give their commencement address. His words define his sense of purpose as follows. I have been asked countless times, why did you start Long Trail School? True, I was young and naive, probably a little nuts, but I also had a clear vision of the educational setting I wanted to create. I was floundering in my middle school years in a large Pittsburgh public school, unchallenged and a potential discipline problem. This was particularly embarrassing for my mother, who was a first grade teacher in a nearby school and best friends with the principal at my school. Her direct source about my every infraction. In desperation, my parents had me tested. The results confirmed what we already knew, that I was bright and bored. The evaluator also provided career direction for me. He said that I should either be a minister, now that's a scary thought, or a used car salesman, which I would probably be very good at. My parents took me to visit Valley Forge Military Academy in 9th grade. I balked. I didn't want to leave my friends and go away to school. But at the end of another aimless year, I begged my parents to let me go. The structure, the support, the high academic and personal expectations at boarding school literally saved me. I knew that such an environment could benefit other kids as it did me. The seed was planted in my mind, and some 15 years later would germinate into the founding of Long Trail School. I'm sure you are familiar with the expressions, one step forward, two steps back. There were times which felt that way for me. I can look back and laugh at those challenges now, but they were no laughing matter at the time. The application to found Long Trail School was submitted to the Vermont State Board of Education in January of 1975, with a few minor glitches. We had no students, no faculty, no schoolhouse, and no money. How was that for a couple of challenges? Long Trail opened as an approved secondary school in September of 1975 with 14 students, 4 faculty, including myself and my wife, Renee, in a rented community hall up the road and a budget of $18,000. We were only short $12,000. Things were looking up, sort of. While we were grateful to have a rented facility, we were also well aware that it was woefully inadequate as an educational facility. We needed science labs, actual classrooms, a library, a performance space, a cafeteria, and playing fields. But where and how would we pay for it? Enter Paul McQuain, the farmer who owned the land the school now sits on, and in memory of whom Paul's Way is named. He sold us our first 3 acres of land on credit, and we raised $184,000 to build the initial schoolhouse facility. That was 1981. So, you may ask, how did Dave and I meet in Vermont? Dave received his Master's of Art in Teaching at Antioch University, New England, located in Putney, Vermont, in 1968. He then headed to Washington, D.C., with friends and got a job as a long-term substitute teacher at Ballou High School during the turbulent late 60s and in the riots in D.C. following the assassination of Martin Luther King. Wanting to return to Vermont to teach in the fall of 1970, Dave responded to an ad in the Washington Post for a driver ed position at then Burn Burton Seminary. His qualification for the job was a driver ed course he had taken in college at Indiana University of Pennsylvania to pull up his GPA. He drove to Manchester on a Friday, was hired, drove back to DC to pick up his meager belongings, and was teaching on Monday. The following year, then BBS headmaster Houghton Pearl asked Dave to create an in-house program for a group of students functioning below grade level. Dave moved the Manchester program off campus to the North House farmhouse at Hildene in the fall of 1972. Academics took place mornings, supervised jobs in Manchester afternoons. I came on the scene in the 3rd year of the program. After receiving my master's in education at Lehigh University in 1967, I became a reading teacher at Long Beach Junior High School for grades 6 through 9 on Long Island. 4 other reading teachers and I had 100 students per class period in one huge room with 3 glass walls. We each had a long table with 20 students. It was clearly a we-they setup. Civility reigned in the classroom, but not beyond. Somewhat disillusioned, I requested a year-long sabbatical, which was granted, and I took a job as the chef at a ski house near Bromley owned by friends. There was one minor issue. I had no cooking experience. My mom gave me a copy of the Fanny Farmer cookbook, which I still have, and some of her fabulous recipes. In the spring of that year, I took a job at the Equinox Hotel, and by the end of that summer, I knew that the hospitality industry was not for me. A friend told me that I would be receiving a phone call from someone at Burn Burton Seminary, and it turned out to be Dave. In 1975, the special ed laws came into effect, and our students had to be mainstreamed back on the BBS campus. Dave had already gathered a group of community leaders. Oscar Johnson of Johnson Fuels and savior of Hildene as an historic site. Clint Lewis, owner of the Jelly Mill. Steve Brown, who joins us here today from Tucson, Arizona, where he serves on the board of Desert Sage High School. Reverend Jerry Heavey of the First Congregational Church, and Jean Schramm of the Enchanted Dollhouse. Together, we made the decision to submit an application to create our own school, and the rest is history. Mutual respect and hard work were at the core of our mission. We all did chores, stacked wood, raked lawns to earn money for our year-end trips. Under Dave's watch, LTS made a total of 8 additions to the school with 8 capital campaigns and the purchase of 11 more acres. Enrollment is at 246 for grades 6 through 12 this year, with 55 faculty and staff. When we retired in 2007, we passed the baton to John Suter, who added the International Baccalaureate program, Stephen Deere, who added our field house, Seth Linfield, who appointed a faculty committee that kept LTS open through COVID, Chuck Scranton, who stepped in as interim head to right the ship, and now Colin Igo, whose energy and leadership will carry LTS forward well into the future. Clearly, the Dave stories abound, and will continue to do so. He loved to tease both faculty and students. He also was very persuasive. And in our early years, one of our math teachers was moving on and then went into a law career. So we needed a math teacher. Somehow, Dave found out that Barb West loved math. So he asked to come to her home to have a chat. And so he offered her a job as a math teacher. And she said, "But I'm not looking for a job." 33 years later, she retired. Our beloved Barb, who just passed away this spring. Dave had two final requests upon his death. First, he wanted to have a big party at school. I think we're delivering on that. And second, he wanted the prayer by David Foster to be sung. And we are delivering on that as I speak. I leave you with the final word from Dave, the closing remarks of his 2013 commencement address, which apply to all of us. Continue to be engaged participants and to serve the needs of others in your individual community as well as your global community. Continue to be responsible stewards of this earth by making environmentally friendly choices as consumers. Appreciate the many blessings of freedom and opportunity you enjoy in this land of plenty and never take them for granted. Be informed citizens and exercise your right to vote. Obey the law. Pursue your passion. And most important of all, as you face the new challenges that are sure to come your way, never give up. Never quit. Always move forward. Be the best that you can be, and a successful and happy life will be yours. Congratulations to the class of 2013, the best class ever! So I would just say in summary, Dave was a good man, and we had a good run. And I now introduce Jeffrey G. back at the piano, Melissa Chestnut-Tangerman, who was our vocal director here at Long Trail for a number of years, and senior vocalist, Sam Walker. I pray you'll be our God and watch us where we go and help us to be wise in times when we don't know.
find light and hold it in our hearts. When stars go out at night,
Eterna stella
eternal star,
nella prime prega.
this be our prayer.
Quanta felice.
No shadows fill our day.
Lead us to a place.
Guide us with your grace.
Give us faith so we'll be safe. Sogniamo un mondo senza vivenza, un mondo di giustizia e di speranza. Ognuno ti ama suo vicino, simbolo di pace e di eternità. La forza che ci dà,
I ask that life be kind
desideri
and
che
help us from above.
non troviamo
Stars go out each night.
Tengo dentro sé.
Star,
Let this be our
this be
prayer.
our prayer.
Just like every child,
Just like every child
needs to find a place. Guide us with your grace. Give us faith so we'll be safe. Nella fede che Haia giorno, sento che ci
A Blessing for You, Dave's Family, written by John O'Donohue. On the day when weight deadens on your shoulders and you stumble, may the clay dance to balance you. And when your eyes freeze behind the gray window and the ghost of loss gets to you, may a flock of colors, indigo, red, green, and azure blue, come to awaken you to a meadow of delight. And the canvas phrase and the currach of thought and the stain of ocean blackens beneath you. May there come across the waters a path of yellow moonlight to bring you safely home. May the nourishment of the earth be yours. May the clarity of light be yours. May the fluency of the ocean be yours. And may the protection of the ancestors be yours. And so may a slow wind work these words of love around you, an invisible cloak, to mind your life. As we depart this gathering, let us be especially mindful of the barriers that people erect between one another, and hope with this perspective we may honor Dave Wilson and his legacy by breaking down barriers and doing our part to create a world that is more loving, peaceful, and unified. Dave, may your soul and all the souls of our departed loved ones rest in peace and live eternally in our hearts. And may God's blessings come upon all of you and remain with you forever. Go in peace with his stories on your lips, and Dave, safe in your hearts.